self-care is not selfish. It's actually the biggest part of showing love that you could offer to your family, your friends, and your community.
As women, we nurture and take care of the world. And so it's just so important to make your health, your self-care numero uno. So
get around people who are going where you want to go and who are where you want to be. And that's exactly what I did. I wanted to be in real estate, so I got around people who were doing things in real estate that I wanted to do.
So you might not be able to move things around or change what happened to you, but if you can change the way that you see it and how you're reacting to it, there's a way.
You just do what you have to do. There's no excuse. This morning, I knew that if I didn't get up at 4 in the morning and clear out my emails and do everything that I needed to do.
You don't want the government to dictate or a judge to dictate how your hard-earned sacrifice and wealth gets distributed to your family and your loved ones.
Our culture is embedded in American culture. There are people who come to America and engage in American culture, which is Black culture. So Juneteenth is really about Black culture, and it's about celebrating us, celebrating the different diasporas of Black people, even the dialects.
Hello, everyone. Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And today is Thursday, which means that it is Lunch and Learn Day. My name is Athenia Rodney. I am the CEO and founder of Juneteenth NYC, 16 years running now. So we are proud individuals to be able to be starting the trajectory, especially in the New York City area, on cultural awareness and everything that has to do with our culture. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm very excited to be bringing him on board, talking about finances, talking about profit, talking about purpose, and where that shows up for us. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were just talking about, like, especially in the Black community, it's difficult for us to be able to engage in profit-bearing activities because we're so worried about our finances and bringing our, like, I'm 9 to 5. And we were just talking backstage about being able to have a home in New York City and how that's become really crazy. So my kids are here, they're going crazy. So you hear them in the background, but that's the life of being working from home, right? So I will bring Brandn on in a moment to tell you a little bit about Brandn and what he's going to be talking about. But Brandn is a Brooklynite from East New York and from Bed-Stuy. So, and it's funny because I've been talking to a couple of people today and they've been like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Brooklyn." They're like, "What part?" And I'm like, well, East New York and Bed-Stuy and Flatbush and and it's like, when you from Brooklyn, you from Brooklyn. Like you pretty much, like, all of Brooklyn is who you are. So I grew up in all of the aspects of it, or had some family in each part as well. So Brandn carries the pulse of the people in everything that he builds, and I love that. That means that he does not forget where he comes from. His journey spans over $1 billion in combined real estate. All right. Can I get a house or apartment? I'm just saying. And tech ventures backed by industry giants like Citi, Amplo Ventures, and even Kevin Durant's 35 Ventures. That's dope. But beyond the numbers, Brandon's work is rooted in something deeper. And that's what makes the biggest part of this all about impact, right? And that is the belief that we don't have to choose between impact and income, which is what I was talking about earlier. What we are able to do, our sacrifice in one space versus what we are able to do financially without sacrificing our home, right? That we can align purpose with profit and people with power. So I'll bring Brandon to the stage, please. Because there's a couple of things that he also had in his bio talking about the Seeing the Dark movement and a couple of other stuff. So we're going to get to that, though. I want to learn a little bit more about that. So Brandon, welcome and thank you for joining us for Juneteenth NYC for our Lunch and Learn on today.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to be here. And I think this is going to be an amazing discussion. I think there's a lot to talk about. So I'll follow your lead.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump in to start. Let's talk about this topic of aligning purpose with profit and people with power. Like I was sharing just a little while ago, right? We, especially in the Black community, one of the challenges that I find, I've worked in a number of different industries. I went to a PWI, right? And so I've seen how our counterparts are able to invest their time in spaces a lot more wholly because they are not worried about, maybe the landscape of financial backing or whatever that may look like. For us, we want to do more, but it then takes away from our capacity to be able to work, right? If I'm putting all of this time and effort into nonprofit opportunities or volunteer opportunities, it takes away my energy to be able to work a job, a 9 to 5. So talk to us a little bit about your thoughts and how this purpose with profit and people empowers us.
I mean, that's a loaded question. And I think there's so many layers to it. But I think where it starts for us is, what's in your hand, right? So, when you get stuck between trying to figure out how to survive versus how to succeed, I know how that feels. I know what that's about. And it's hard to figure out how to transition from just survival mode to really being able to do more than just survive. And I think where it started for us in our business, at least on the real estate side, is really trying to understand what's in your hand. Adam Clayton Powell preached a powerful message, a historic message many, many years ago, asking the question, what's in your hand? About the children of Israel who were in Exodus coming out of Egypt. They were at the Red Sea. They had the army, Egypt's army behind them, Pharaoh's behind them. They had the Red Sea in front of them. And they're trying to figure out, well, how are we going to get out of this situation? And God asked Moses one question, what's in your hand? What do you have? What's in your hand is going to get you through where you're trying to go. And I think what has happened is in many cases, we get stuck in that survival mode because we're looking at what's in front of us, the barrier in front of us, issues behind us, surrounded by bills, surrounded by problems, surrounded by all sorts of stuff, not realizing that even though in the midst of all of these issues, there's something in our hand that we can use. It's a gift, it's a talent, it's a resource, it's a relationship that we haven't activated in order to get us out of the situation that we're in. And so what we've done on the real estate side is ask that question, what's in our hand? And, growing up in the Black community and Black church, my business partners and I, we figured out that there was something in our hand that we were overlooking. We were doing all these big deals around the country, buying commercial office buildings, buying a whole bunch of other sort of high profile development deals. And we realized, wait a minute, the church, the HBCUs, we have relationships with them. They own land. But yet at the same time, many of them have been struggling. And so we worked out a way and a strategy to partner with them to find a way to activate their land and use that as a not just revenue stream, but a wealth building opportunity for the institution so we can make the next generation's road a lot easier so they can get out of survival and move into success. And so I think that's where it starts, just really understanding what do you have and what haven't you activated that's already in your hand.
Okay, now you done dropped a whole lot of stuff. Now you got, first of all, you done brought Jesus into the space. You done started talking about Bible verses. I'm like, all right, you yes. So now, okay, so I want to back up. So you said that you reached out. So talk to us about what you were able to do with some of these churches and how that looked, because Yeah, like especially our churches, right? Like I had this whole vision, or at least I don't know if it was Mayor Adams or not, but one of the mayors, I know when he came on board, his idea was to try to make the churches more of a the community. And I know my pastor, I go to Christian Cultural Center over
Yeah.
on Flatlands Avenue, and they're in the process of a mega build out, right, where they are building a community of around the Christian, like the Christian idea of being a Christian as a culture, right? And where there's going to be living spaces, there are going to be spaces of engagement. And I know a couple of other churches have also kind of thought about that. I know I'm in Georgia, and David Bronner also has a similar kind of ideology around it as well. So talk to us about, because we have a lot of pastors who join us and who watch, who are business owners as well. And yeah, they're struggling, right? Like that struggle is real. Only dependent on the tithes of the parishioners, and that sometimes is not enough. So talk to us about maybe some ideas or some thoughts of what you have shared with others that have helped them to be more profitable.
Well, yeah, you've also just said a lot. I think, well, first of all, Innovative Urban Village, that's what Dr. Bernard is doing at Christian Cultural Center. I'm intimately aware of much of the work that they're doing and the partners that they have. And I really want to give a big shout out to what they're doing. It is groundbreaking and it is historic. So I think that's going to make a huge difference, not only in the church's future, but obviously in the communities. And pretty much that is the idea that we have. We see that churches are going through, not just churches, but Black institutions. I don't want to just say churches, Black institutions, particularly churches and HBCUs, which are really the only two Black institutions that own land in the Black community anymore, right? It's really the churches and the HBCUs. They own significant land. And here's what I've learned about land. So I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy. I grew up with, friends with drug dealers and gang and, all of that stuff. I grew up around all of that. And one of the things that always confused me was how we would kill each other over land and territory we didn't own. Even as a kid, I just be like, but you are willing to shoot me for coming on this block that you own it. Me on. And then the landlord can just throw you and your sister and your mother out, no problem. And then it just never made sense to me. And so that's when I realized at a very early age that whoever owns the land makes the rules, period. Whoever owns the land makes the rules, bottom line. And then they make the rules that benefit them and benefit the things and the people that they care about. So first of all, if you don't own the land, you can't make the rules. And the rules that are made are not going to benefit you, period. And so we see that that's the result of what's happened in our communities. As a result of either not owning the land or not activating the land, because you can own it, but then you have to activate it. So if you own it, or if you don't own it, or if you don't activate it, you end up in a situation where you are at the mercy of those that are in power that do own land or those that are activating it. And so we wanted to empower the two Black institutions that we know around the country that own land, to be able to make rules that benefit the institution, benefit the stakeholders, and benefit the community into the future. So I think I'll start with the HBCU work that we've done, and then we can back into sort of the church thing. I think, we realize that there's about 107 HBCUs around the country. Half are publicly funded, the other half privately funded. And many of these HBCUs, particularly the private ones, have to depend on raising money for their activities and their endowment, right? Which is not easy to do at all. And so what we found is that if you take all of the HBCUs combined, take their endowments, all of the HBCU endowments are still significantly less than the smallest Ivy League endowment, which is Brown University. So all of those 107, take their endowments, put them up against just one Ivy League school, the smallest one. And that endowment is bigger than all of the HBCUs combined. Now, why is that a big deal? You ask good questions. That's a big deal because if you don't have money to fund and invest into your future, you cannot control your economic destiny. So Harvard is able to have billions of dollars to invest in students, to invest in programs, to invest in research, to invest in all sorts of things that will benefit generations down the line because they have that money in their endowment. HBCUs, unfortunately, don't have that benefit. So it will always feel like the HBCU or that system, many of those schools are in survival mode because they haven't had a chance to really activate the resources that they have to benefit students and communities for the future. So what we've done is we've said, listen, what's in your hand? Same thing to the churches. What do you have in your hand? What do you control now? And for many of them, it is land that they've owned from the 1800s, from the early 1900s that they've just not invested, that they've not developed, not because they didn't want to, they just didn't know how. And so because, we come from that background and we have access to and understanding of how to structure these kinds of deals, we partnered with those HBCUs, we partnered with those churches in a way where they didn't have to sell, but just partner with us. And we would basically develop those assets together so that it can benefit the university, benefit the community, and build legacy into the future.
No, I definitely love that. And you, it's funny because I was sharing, I went to a PWI. I graduated from a small liberal arts college in Middlebury, Vermont, called Middlebury College. Mm-hmm. And I did a domestic exchange over at Spelman College. And one of the things that I saw was just that, everything that you just shared just now about the endowments. I was looking at Spelman, and I'm like, okay, well, you have all these stars and stars children who are attending this school, but yet I don't see it manifesting in endowments. Like they're manifesting it in the land, like they're cultivating the land, they're building them, and not to say that doesn't need to happen, but when you understand and know how to deal in that space and operate, you build up your endowment first, and you use the interest from the endowment to build up the land. And when I found that out, I was like, that blew my mind. I was like, oh, this is what we've been doing wrong all the time.
And these institutions, and not only institutions, but wealthy individuals, they live off of the interest.
They don't spend their money. They will forever be a millionaire. Like that will always be the case because they're not touching their money. They're touching the interest of what that money is building, is bringing off. So I'm glad. Oh my gosh, like this is such a great conversation because Brandn, like trying to explain this to people are just like, oh, I don't really get it. Like they don't understand what endowments are. And especially in the college, when I was talking to them at Spelman, they were looking at me like I had two heads. And I'm like, why don't y'all know this? I need y'all to know this so that we can continue this. And now you also said something, and I found out something the other day. So first of all, Spelman was started by a Rockefeller.
That's right.
And so I was like, wait, what? So I was like, hold on. So what do you mean? So how, I don't know. And I didn't go deeper into conversation when I was talking about this to find out, like, did we purchase it from Laura Rockefeller, or does she still own it? And we still, just kind of riding the coattails off of that. I don't know if you know that, but I feel, then we got into this broader conversation that a lot of our HBCUs are owned by some of these larger entity individuals that are under pseudonames because they didn't want to be glorified, which I appreciate, but they still are benefiting off of it. So I don't know if you could talk to that a little bit as well.
I think, we can dive into all the politics about that, which I think would be some muddy waters. But at the end of the day, the goal here should be and is, how do I control my own destiny? Which is one of the principles of Kwanzaa, self-determination. And so that is, whether we're talking about HBCUs, whether we're talking about churches, the world is changing, and it's changing at a much faster pace than it ever has in history. The way technology is evolving, it really is a point at which we can take advantage of these changes or just be destroyed by them. And so places like HBCUs, places like churches that are seeing membership decline because people are moving. People are, People are leaving places like New York. And so you have I'm going to use New York as an example. People are leaving places like New York because they can't afford it. What does that do to the churches that depend on membership being in the building and not just online, right? How does that work? How can I start an organization in New York, expect people to join, but they can't afford to live here? So how can they really be a part of the organization, whether it's a church or something else? So I think HBCUs are in a similar position where they are going up against these PWIs who have these large endowments, who have these resources that they don't have. But how do we use what's happening in society today, using what's in their hand as a way to build in the kind of endowments and the kind of resources to be able to compete and to be able to attract the kind of students that will help to bring the institution further into the future. So that's much of the work that we do. And it is rewarding, and it is at times very difficult, but we're pushing forward, and it's been successful.
I can imagine. So how do you get people on board? And I don't know how far, because what I've been engaging and learning more about a land trust, where people in the community can pool their money so that they can purchase land and they can determine what goes on that land. So can you talk a little bit about, I don't know if you have any background as far as land trusts are concerned, but how is what you're doing in this space, working with the HBCUs, working with the churches, or just business owners overall, relative to that?
Well, I mean, it varies from state to state and city to city and neighborhood to neighborhood. But I think at the core of what you're talking about is, we use the word collaboration and figuring out a way to have some sort of public-private partnership. That's really what this is, right? So wherever you are, whoever's watching, you might live in a state or in a city or in a county that may own land. It might be publicly owned land. The question is, what is the city going to do with that land? And how can you position yourself if you are in the place of wanting to invest and wanting to take control of some assets in your community? How can you get control of that land? So in many cases, it's an auction. In many cases, it is literally filling out an RFP, a request for proposal, where you put yourself in the position to get control of that land. And in many cases, you can get it for $1. There's places in Detroit that have certain programs where you can pretty much get houses for nothing. But you just have to do the research on what's happening in your particular community. And you go to the city registrar's website, go to the state's Economic Development Corp's website, and look at what assets are available, what programs are available. And in many cases, you'll find programs that are not only available to get the property, but also they'll offer ways to finance the property if there's a need for financing. So what I would encourage you to do is research, figure out what's available in your town, and then put together some friends and family that have similar or like minds to be able to access and take control of those assets. That's what I would do.
Now, Brandn, you're gonna have to come back and do a workshop. I'm just throwing it out there right now, because we got to go a little bit. We're gonna have to go deeper in a more closed environment with individuals who have this mindset, who want to take things farther. Sure. But because there are a couple of things. So you talked about this, and even in New York City, there was a RFP that went out where people could purchase land for $1, right? But you also had to have, I think, like $1 billion in the bank, or some kind of backing to be able to say that you weren't just going to get the land and not do something, like that you had enough money or infrastructure behind you to build on it once you got the land. So can you talk about that as well? Because that really it left itself open for businesses that were not as well-to-do. While the idea sounded great, like, oh, you can purchase land for $1, like, who's walking around with $1 billion in their bank account?
So I'm not familiar with that particular program, but what I will say is partnership is key. It's very difficult to accomplish anything of scale, anything of significance alone. It's just, I don't care how great you are, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care how much money you have. It doesn't even matter. So I think a lot of times we get intimidated by the numbers. But again, what's in your hand? We focus a lot on what we don't have and not enough on what we do have. And at the end of the day, even if you don't have the money, you might have the people, right? So power is what I've learned in my community organizing days. I used to be in community organizing. Is power is organized money and or organized people. Organized money or organized people. So you may not have the money organized, but you might have the people organized. And if you can take the fact that you have that in your hand, you can get the money. You can get the money. So start with what you have. So if what you have is access to information, that's huge. I think the greatest gift you can give anybody is the gift of access, which is one of the reasons why we started our internet business, our telecom business, is to give people access to affordable broadband. But the greatest you can give anybody is the gift of access to information and opportunity. And for so long, our community has been denied that gift of access, while other communities have been given that gift freely. And we see the effects of that. But if all you have is access to information, that's huge. And if the information is, here's the list of properties that's available, step one. Here's the process that we need to figure out that we have to go through to gain control of those assets. What do we need to do? First of all, what do we have today in our hand that will allow us to meet the requirements in that process? And then go down the list. And what we don't have, we'll address that. But believe me, what it is that you have in your hand is something that your partner doesn't have in their hand, or your potential partner doesn't have in their hand. And what they have in their hand is something that you don't have in your hand. The issue is finding out what I have in mind, making sure I understand what that is. Then I go find a partner who doesn't have what I have, but they have what I need, and we partner. And that's what we've done, and that's what we do. We have the money, we have the experience in terms of doing developments, doing infrastructure, providing broadband. We don't have the land, right? The churches have the land. The HBCUs have the land. And so we partner and we make a meaningful partnership to create meaningful change.
Got it. Oh yeah, this is gonna have to be a part two because I have so many other questions, and I'm like, I want to go on to some of the other stuff that you got going on as well. But yeah, because there also goes into another level of like what partnerships, we can have. We can both have resources in our hand, but how do we equate that? How do we give it a number, right? So like, how do I say that my 5,000 people or 10 or 20,000 people that I have, as far as, like you said, organized people, equates to your $20 million. And, some people might not feel like that equates in that nature. And I'm just thinking of like an HBCU and how they might feel if we're like, hey, we have all these resources, like, hey, I do marketing, right? I can come in here, I can help to market your business to more affluent individuals to apply so that we can help to build our endowment or to even help you build your endowment. And they're like, well, what do you want from it? And then you're like, I just want 10 or 20%. And they're like, I don't know. So like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think, and that is a real issue that's come up. But at the end of the day, it's actually pretty simple. It's a formula. It's business. 1 + 1 is 2, right? So there are different formulas that you run through. For example, if land is involved, that's very simple. You value the asset with an appraisal, and you put that up against what's needed to actually develop it, and you figure out what the ownership equity will be. There's no emotion in this. And I think that's where we get caught up, because you use the word feeling at least 3 times when you were just talking about this particular aspect. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in the emotion of it, which I understand it can be emotional because these are assets that you've owned for a long time. People really want to get out of the position that they're in and really build wealth. And it can be emotional. I get that. But we have to be very careful not to get stuck in the emotion, because at the end of the day, there are no feelings in the fact that 1 + 1 is 2. So you might feel that your position is worth $1 billion. I know you feel that way, but let's look at the numbers and see what it is. And that's just what it is. So you may walk away with owning 5%, right? I'm just saying in general. But 5% is better than 0. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in those kinds of things, and then ego gets into the situation. And then why is it that you get this? And then it's just crabs in a barrel, and nothing gets done, and we just go around in circles and we lose again. And this happens over and over and over and over in our community. We have to put aside the egos. We have to put aside the pride. How do we make things work so that our children are not in the same struggle as we were? How do we build an economic future where our children are in a better position than us to make decisions as to what happens in the communities that they live in, as opposed to someone who doesn't live here, someone who has no stake, claim, or care in the community besides it being economic. They don't care if our children are educated. They don't care if our hospitals are quality. They don't care if we have good food options for families. They don't care if our grocery stores are quality. They don't care. They just want their money or their rent at the end of the month. And they don't live here. And then they drive off into their communities where they do care. And then we don't have a say in their communities where they live, but they have a say in ours. How do we change that? It's not going to change if I'm worried about the fact that you're getting 10% and I'm only getting 9%. Like it's not gonna work that way. And so you have to work with people who are of like mind. That's another thing. Working with people who are like, so I'm not saying partner with anybody. You might have the resource that I need, but you don't have the mentality that I need. Right? So I need you to have the resource, but I also need you to have the mentality. And if you don't have the mentality, but you have the resource, we're not going to be able to work together.
I'm writing that down. I need you to have the mentality as well as the resources in order to make this relationship work. I love that. And I think that is such a big point, because people don't, people want to get out of the crabs mentality. And I say people at the top, they collaborate. People at the bottom, they compete. And I said, if we continue to be in this space of competitive nature, then we'll always stay at the bottom. We have to be thinking about how we're collaborating, and that starts with the mentality. And how do we transition that mentality? So that is definitely something to think about. But I want to jump into the Seeing in the Dark movement. Talk to us about what the Seeing in the Dark movement is.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think that everyone, regardless of where you are in your life, you go down this road where you know where you are, you know what you're doing, you think you know what you're doing, you think you know who you are, the lights are on, you're clear about what it is you want to achieve, and then out of nowhere, the lights turn off. Things go left and the rug is pulled from underneath you and things get dark. And a lot of times when that happens, whether it's in your business, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in your own personal life, a lot of times what people do is when the lights turn off, they're waiting for the lights to turn on again before they make a move. And they get stuck in the dark. But what I've learned is that what separates people who succeed from people who aren't able to fulfill what's in them to fulfill is that the people who succeed, the people who elevate, and the people who evolve learn how to see even before the lights turn back on, even before they're clear about what the next steps are, even before they're clear about who they're going to partner with or what the resources are, even before they're clear about what's happening in their lives and have all the answers. They learn to navigate and see even in the dark, and then they become for themselves much of the light that they've been looking for, and they don't wait for the light to turn back on. And so Seeing the Dark is basically a movement that we started to help people do that in their business. When the economy shift and you have to go through change management and you have to go through necessary shifts in how you've always done things, that's a process, and it could be traumatic because I know what I have, I don't know what I'm going to get. So how do I move forward when I don't know what's ahead of me? So I think that this movement that we've started, and we actually started it not just for businesses, but for individual people. And so we've done a few talks at some different events that were both corporate and sort of more personal and intimate to just help people navigate and figure out, well, how do I move in the dark when I feel stuck and I don't know the answers? Because I feel like wasted potential is probably one of the worst things that humanity has to deal with, where you have so many people who are wasting away in poverty, wasting away in depression, wasting away in anxiety, wasting away in debt because it's dark. And how do we get people out of that? And so we started a whole talk around this, and we just started it maybe about 2 months ago, and it's been getting some pretty significant traction. And so we're blessed and excited to see it grow.
It sounds like a podcast brewing. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, there's some things on the horizon. We'll see. We'll make some announcements over the next couple of months. So stay
Okay.
tuned. Yeah, stay tuned.
I will definitely. So you talked about this whole idea of just a mindset shift.
Yeah.
You also talked about being able to work with organizations like Sid and Kevin Durant's 35 Ventures. Like, what kind of mindset shifts do you feel like are necessary to be able to walk into rooms? Because the whole idea is like, oh, I need a seat at a table, and if I can't get a seat at a table, I need to create my own table. And I'm like, yes, and you have to know how to operate at the tables too in order to create a seat at your own table. But talk to us a little bit about what kind of mindset shift you feel is necessary in order to have seats at those type of tables.
I think it's very straightforward for me. It's a couple of things. One, understanding the value that you're bringing to the table. Because why are you at the table? I think a lot of people want to be at the table just to be there. But if you're at the table, it should be because you're bringing value to it, and the people at the table know it. So you get value from being at the table, and the people at the table get value from you being there. Not just it can't just be one way. It can't just be you bringing value to the table, but the table's not bringing value to you, and it can't be the table bringing value to you, but you're not bringing any value to it. So it has to be this mutual benefit. So the question is, why are you there to begin with? What is the why? Like, what is the problem that you're solving that is significant and important and of value to the people at the table? And if you're solving something like a lack of access to broadband and found a way to monetize that and make it profitable while still helping people, that's valuable. Did you figure out a way to create more housing and make it more not only available, but more accessible? That's valuable. And make it profitable. That's valuable. So what value are you bringing to the table? That to me is huge. And then who gets you in the room, but what you know keeps you there. That's my belief. Who gets you in the room, but what keeps you there. And a lot of times we don't do enough homework in knowing what it is that we're presenting intimately, to the point where if I'm going into a meeting about telecom or affordable housing, I'm actually in another state right now to talk with a mayor about doing some development and some infrastructure work. And I spent the last 2 days intimately understanding the market, reading and asking questions and studying charts. So when I go to these meetings, I know what the area median income is. I know what the average household size is. I know how many housing units are in this particular neighborhood. I know who the developer is who built the most units here. I know what the political issues are. I know the drama going on. So I know what's happening, because when I sit down at the table, I need it to be clear that I belong here. And I don't belong here just because I want to be here, but because I'm bringing value that will be of benefit to the people sitting here and the people connected to them. And so I think that's the mindset shift. I don't want to just be here just to be here. I want to be here to make a statement and to let it be known that I'm bringing value. And I know I'm bringing value. And I know that you, who's sitting at the table, you're bringing value to me too. So let's create magic together.
Yeah. Wow. And what comes to mind to me is like what, you said you grew up in East New York, and like, what are some of the values or some of the things that may have helped you to learn it? Because that's a learned skill. Like, we talk about, when you go in front of somebody or when you go for an interview, you got to have questions, you got to do your background information. But it's like, especially now with ChatGPT, it's like, let me just look up something and that's it. What makes you go so deep and broad when you are having these kind of conversations? Like, how did you get to this space?
So is it about East New York, or how did I get to this space? Which part do you want me to answer?
So how did you get here? You can start there, and then we could talk about how your upbringing in the East New York area helped you to get there. My parents,
bottom line. My parents. One of the best things my parents ever did, growing up in East New York, growing up in Brooklyn, and not just. I'm not talking about the new Bed-Stuy and the new Brooklyn, because there's a new Brooklyn and there's an old Brooklyn. I grew up in old Brooklyn, so those of us who understand old Brooklyn, you understand what that means. So growing up in old Brooklyn, my parents, even though that's where I grew up, they exposed me to things outside of that. Like we went away and, they introduced me to certain people and allowed me to just realize that there's a world outside of where I come from, which always made me curious and want more. And so I think one of the things that our young people lack the most is exposure. Because if you don't know it exists, you don't know to reach for it. Because if you can't see it, you can't seize it. You know what I'm saying? If you can't see it, you can't grab hold to it. And so a lot of times our young people only grab hold or reach for what they can see. And in many cases, what they can see is limited. It's not, it doesn't speak to the full potential that they have inside of them. But once you expose them and give them a chance to realize that there's more than what it is that you've seen, then they're able to reach a little bit further and allows them to dig a little bit deeper in their potential and in their possibility. And so my parents did that for me. They're West Indian, so hard work, integrity, all of those things really help to make me who I am. And then, growing up in the church, my faith, that's another thing. I think one of the best things that ever happened was getting exposed to power early on in life. So growing up in the Black church, you have to be a part of the youth ministry, and you have to clean the church, and you have to, do all sorts of stuff. And they give you responsibility and authority pretty early. So you understand how to deal with people, which I tell my son all the time, like, I don't care how gifted you are. If you don't know how to deal with people, you're going to have a problem. And so I think what being a part of community, whether it's church or whether it's the overall community, it helps you understand how to navigate personalities, your own personality, how to kind of deal with people and politics. Because wherever there's people, there's politics. Wherever there's people, there's politics. So I think growing up in that environment helped me to understand people and personalities and how to navigate power, so I don't get drunk on power. I see that power is really a tool. It's not, you don't just have it just to have it, whereas a lot of people want it just because it looks sexy and it feels good to be powerful, but it's really power is a tool to get something done. Like influence is a tool, or should be a tool to get something done that hopefully will help you and help other people. So I think that's helped me tremendously and helped me get to where I am, and it's given me a level of confidence that my father gave me at a very early age. I tell this story all the time. If I get emotional, just forgive me. Because I can never tell the story and not get emotional. And I wasn't going to tell it, but I feel like, I don't know. I feel that I should. I feel you pushing me to tell it. Yeah. So when I was about 5, I would say I was around 5. I used to walk with my head down. And my father didn't notice until one day we came home from I think we were at like a church or something. It was like a Tuesday night, Tuesday night Bible study. You in church every day back then. And you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
And so I'm walking into the house with my head down. And my father's like, "Why are you walking with your head down?" And I said to him, "I'm ugly." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "My ears are too big, right? And I'm 5. So I walked with my head down because I thought my ears were too big, right?" And my father, he was angry. He was like, "What?" So we get into the house. He pulls me into the bathroom, closes the door, picks me up, puts me in the mirror, and said, "Look at him. You're a Gibson. When God made you, he made no mistakes. You're strong. You're this, you're that." And he spent the next few minutes speaking life into me.
Come on.
Speaking life into me. And when my father opened up that bathroom and I walked out a different person. I can remember it to this day. To this day, I can still remember the feeling that I felt walking out of that bathroom. I felt like a different person. I was reborn. I was remade. And there was a level of confidence that I had that my father gave me that day that I still have to this day, where I can walk into any room, and I walk into rooms with names that people who are much more prominent than me, bigger names than mine. and I'm not intimidated because of what my father told me. He told me who I was. And I still think about it to this day. And so my fear and what hurts me is that I know that a lot of people, men and women, boys and girls, never had that. Never had anyone tell them who they were. And whether it was, they may not have thought that their ears were too big, but maybe they thought that they weren't smart enough. Maybe they thought that they weren't cute enough. They weren't strong enough. They weren't connected enough. And as a result, they stayed in the dark to the possibility of what they can actually succeed and accomplish. And so much of the work that I do, whether it's corporately or even with the See in the Dark movement, is to align people with the power that they already have. And so an interesting thing is, just to kind of align this with the whole Juneteenth theme, is I think one of the most powerful things for me about Juneteenth is that you have a group of people who were free and didn't know it. That to me is just, if you just sit and think about that idea, that you can be free, it's already there, but you just didn't know it. All it took was for someone to come and tell you, and that's what my father did for me. My father knew that I was free, knew that I was powerful, knew that I had potential. I just didn't know it. It just took someone to come to me and tell me, you're free, man. And I just had to believe it, and I do. And so I think that's why the work that I do and the way that I do it resonates with me so much from that moment with my father. And I really believe a part of my calling, corporately, professionally, and personally, which is a spiritual calling to me, all of it is spiritual to me, let people know of the freedom and possibility that they already have. And how do we wake our people up to that from an institutional level and on a personal level? So that's how I'll answer that.
Mic dropped. No, and you were right. I had to I was like, all right, I got a little tea going on here. I'm like,
one was coming right here. One was coming right here when I was talking, but I pulled it back in.
Pulled it back.
I'm from East New York. I can't do all of that on the show.
Oh God! Oh my gosh! But you said a lot, and even opening up Pandora's box about even now we are free in ideology, but we don't know it. Like, we're not taking advantage of everything. Instead, we're in this woe is me. We're in this mentality of oh, this happened to me and that happened to me, and it's like, yeah, this happened to that person too, but they're still going beyond it. And I always like to talk about, like, I came from a family, we were on public assistance my entire young life. And to go and say now that I'm a homeowner, that I went to a PWI, I went to a school that was over $50,000 a year, and I was able to get that fully paid for. So, like, if you put your mind to it, you can achieve it. And it is not, and like, similar to you, my grandfather was that for me. He was like, you know who loves you most? And I was like, yeah, you do. And he was like, no, he said God. He said, because God put you on this earth for a purpose and a reason. Your birthday is a day to celebrate that you have a purpose on this earth, and that you need to be working towards it each and every day. Everything that you do needs to be working towards that purpose. And I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is. He's like, God will reveal it to you in time. And that is pretty much what you have just been sharing and just talking about in different ways. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs on. We have a lot of young people on. What would you say to them? Something that they maybe need to do as a daily action so that they can change their mindset?
A couple of things. And first of all, kudos on all the work that you've done. Big shout out to you, going from where you've been and where you come from to what you've been able to accomplish. That is huge. And it takes a certain kind of person to be able to transcend where they've been, because most people just kind of stay stuck to what they've seen. You were able to grab hold to something that you didn't even see, you didn't come from. That's a miracle. That's not something to be understated. Most people aren't able to do that. So big shout out to you to be able to do that, and to also talk about it and to point people in that direction. Huge. So I love that. What would I tell young people? I'll tell young people a couple of things. Get around people who are going where you want to go and who are where you want to be. And that's exactly what I did. I wanted to be in real estate, so I got around people who were doing things in real estate that I wanted to do on a major level. I wanted to be there. I saw myself being there, so I got myself around them. And then all of my friends, every single one of the friends that I spent most of my time with, all of them were going towards something. Like all of us were like focused. We want to do this. We want to achieve. We want to be able to provide for not only our families, but our communities. We want to build. All of my friends, we had the same mindset. No one in my personal insider friend group didn't have that mentality. In order to get access to that part of me and my friend group, you had to have that mentality, because we understood if you didn't have that mentality, you're going to be distracting us from getting to where we need to go. And so we needed people around us who understood where we were trying to go and therefore understood what it took to get there. And then we encourage each other when days came where we didn't want to do it anymore, we got tired or we got discouraged. And so just make sure that the people around you are going where you want to go, and not people who are going in a different direction. And that's tough, because in many cases you grow up with those people. They're part of your family, many of them. And you have to kind of let go. And that's not easy. So that's one. Two, make sure you know what you're talking about. When you are presenting something and you're going somewhere, make sure no one in that room knows more about it than you, because you've studied, because you've done the diligence. That's what made one of the things that made Kobe Bryant so great. He wasn't intimidated on the court because he knew no one on that court spent more time in practice than him. No one on that court took more practice shots in the off season than him. It wasn't just that he was better athletically or otherwise. It was that no one else put more time in than he did. And so really, really, really spend time on honing your craft. What I like to tell young people is a diamond is still a diamond, even when it's in the rough. But no one is going to wear it around their neck until it's refined. A diamond is still a diamond, even when it's in the rough. But no one is going to wear it around their neck until it's refined. And so there's a lot of our young people are literally just diamonds in the rough, diamonds, just so much value, so much potential. But the process of refinement is, I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what ChatGPT tells you. I don't care what Instagram tells you. I don't care what WorldStar tells you. I don't care what any of it tells you. You have to spend time perfecting what it is that you do. And the value that you bring to the table that we were talking about earlier is that perfection, or the perfecting of what it is that you do, whether it's real estate, whether it's singing, whether it's art, whether it's technology, whether it's athletics. What are you perfecting? What are you perfecting? And that might mean going to school. It might mean being an apprentice to someone. It might mean just spending time studying that thing in whatever way and process that works. But you have to be the best at what it is that you do, the best you at this thing that you can be, because that's where your value is going to come from. That's where your value is going to come from.
Well, you just full of nuggets, and like we didn't got so many good quotes from you. You are like on fire, for sure. Thank you for sharing all of those. And you talked about this being around people and being distracted, and that was definitely for me. I would come home on those vacations and my friends were still on the same corner and they still was doing the same thing. And as I started to elevate and started to do, not so much elevate, but I just started to do different things and be around different people. They was like, oh, you think you're better than us? And I'm like, I don't think I'm better than y'all, but I desire to be better. So that means that I can't do the same things that I was doing before, because I can't get caught out there. I can't be on the corner and then the cops roll up and I get arrested. And now my opportunities to be in certain rooms are removed or they're lessened. So, being able to identify that. So I love that you said that, and being able to remove those distractions. One of the things that I thought you were going to mention was about mentorship. Can you talk about where mentorship has fallen for you?
Oh man, I have had some amazing mentors throughout my life. I've been blessed to have some amazing men and women who have mentored, and some still mentor me, both in the church world, in the business world. I would not be where I am, both professionally, both personally, without people. Well, first of all, my father was my first, and still is my biggest mentor. My mother is as well. She's a force to be reckoned with. So my parents are, I would say, have been and still are my biggest mentors. From a community and sort of, church perspective, ministry perspective, Tyrone Stevenson, major mentor of mine, who really helped to frame my thinking around ministry and community, how to marry those two things, and speaking. Like that was, great mentor of mine. Another mentor, Greg Nelson, in terms of speaking, just phenomenal orator as well. Tawan Davis. Tawan is a beast in not only in community and in the church world, but also in economics and in real estate, commercial and institutional real estate. Tawan was doing $100 million development deals, $1 billion development deals in his 30s. Black man, and we still work together to this day. And so many others. You get in trouble naming names, but there's so many others who have played a major role in my life and in my development that I'm grateful to God for. And then, their mentorship wasn't just words. It was how do I support what you're doing? Because mentorship is not support. So a lot of people like active support. Like you can mentor me by giving me words and advice, but are you plugging me into your network? Are you plugging me into your platform? Let's just call it what it is. Like, are you doing that? And the greatest thing that I think we can do for each other, because other cultures do it for themselves. So they will bring on someone who's gifted. They'll bring someone on who has potential, and not only give them advice, but literally give them opportunity, right? With whatever's in their hand. So they know what's in their hand, and then they let you get a piece of it and see what you do with it, right? Whereas a lot of times in our community, a potential mentor may have something in their hand and they keep it, and they're not going to let you get a piece of it. They're not going to let you get a piece of it. And so the time that it would take for you to get to where you're going would be less if they did let you get a piece of it. And so we have to spend a lot of time figuring things out, where if the mentor if they were really a mentor, if they gave you a piece, you could have been able to get to where you're going much sooner. So I see that, and I can go into that much deeper than that, but I don't really have the time for it. I could be real blunt about some of the things that I see with that, but that's one of the issues that I see in our community. So a mentor who doesn't just talk, they plug you into different things and give you access to their world. And so the folks that I mentioned, they did exactly that for me. They plugged me into their world to whatever degree they were comfortable, to whatever degree they could, and knew how to do. They did it, and I'm grateful to God for that. And now it's my turn to do that for other people as well. And I'm doing that now for other folks. Hopefully, they're able to take that and run with it.
Absolutely. We have somebody who has asked, are you mentoring others? And I guess you just answered that question. So we are minutes before 1, and I do want to end on this note and asking, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
Juneteenth means, other than its cultural significance of our people, and obviously it's an extremely culturally and historic moment for our people. It is, for the purpose of this conversation, it is, and I would go back to what I said earlier, it really is a reminder that it is possible to be free and not know it. It is possible to be healed and not know it. And so the question is, if that's true, in what area in your life today, when I look at Juneteenth, can we use that idea to get to where it is that we want to go? Where am I free today, but I just don't know it? Where am I healed today, and I don't realize it? Where am I powerful today, but I haven't realized it. I haven't received it. I haven't acknowledged my own power. And I think when you look at Juneteenth, it's a reminder to take inventory of your own life and look at where you're blind to your own power, your own freedom, your own healing, and open up your eyes and realize what it is you're asking for, you already have. What's in your hand?
Wow. That just gave me chills. I got people sending me fire. Brandon is dope. You're amazing. You have dropped so many gems, and we are absolutely so thankful. And I hope that you will suggest some of these mentors that you just mentioned as Black Kings for our Black Kings honoring for next year, because we think that they would be amazing individuals to be honored and to be given their flowers while they are still alive. Brandon, do you have any last words before I close out today? Thank you again.
Look at what's in your hand and use it. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We put your IG here. I am Brandn Gibson on the screen. We definitely encourage you to follow him and continue to ask him these questions. I promise you, we're gonna try to wrangle Brandon in so that we can get him to do a workshop or something.
Anytime.
There's a lot of questions I'm sure that we need to have in a closed forum, so that we can really go deeper and understand. And there's some other things too that we're working on that I'll talk to you about some overseas investing and what that looks like and how we could bring the community together around that. So Brandon, thank you again. I am going to send you backstage, but please wait so that I can close out with you after I close out with everyone else.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you. Woo, y'all. That was so good. I had such a good time. Like my whole skin is like, raised and everything. Brandon really talked about some really great topics and just thinking about what is in your hand. What resources do you have? How are you showing up at the table? Are you just showing up to get, or are you showing up to give and to get? Where are the areas and where you at? Is there a mutual reciprocity? Like, those are the things that I heard. How we invest in our community, how we turning back the hands of time, how we understanding our freedom and utilizing it, taking advantage of the freedom that we have. How we're using our mentorship, how we pouring into our young people, like all of the things. Brandon really talked about some really, really great nuggets. If you missed any part of this, I encourage you to go back and rewatch it. It is well worth the 60 minutes. So thank you again. We really appreciate you. We have a dope lineup all the way up until September. We're going to be bringing some more amazing topics and conversations like this. So continue to stay locked in. Like, share, and follow us on our YouTube page, on Instagram, so you can stay connected to all of the amazing things that we have. There are a number of things that are going to be coming out, including talking about a trip to Accra, Ghana. So look forward to hearing some more information about that. But I just want to put that on your radar for 2027, that you are preparing for that and starting to put your coins together, because there's definitely something that we need to be doing and understand a little bit more. Again, my name is Athenia Rodney, CEO and founder of Juneteenth NYC. It was a pleasure being with you all today. I look forward to next week, Thursday, same time, same bat channel, same bat place. Have a blessed one.
From the roots of tradition to the rise of reconnection, where history meets the heart of Africa. Celebrate freedom, culture, and homecoming. This isn't just a trip, it's a return. The motherland is calling. Will you answer?